Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and my beautiful criminal justice class. Today we are doing a podcast for the topic of rape and sexual assault. And as you read with the viewer discretion, there will be very serious mentions of rape, sexual assault, groping cases, and substance use and stuff like that. And today I am joined by my co-host, Sister Piper.
Hi guys, I'm here to help out.
Oh yes. We begin with a personal story from a very famous, well-known actor, Terry Crews. He was chosen specifically for this because Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of my favorite shows. Mr. Crews' story begins in 2017 when he came out with a shocking experience of his sexual assault and the troubles it brought him through. During a special event, he and his wife had been enjoying their time together and with friends until someone approached Crews and grabbed his privates. He was quoted saying that it had caught him off guard and that the perpetrator, who was later found to be Hollywood executive Adam Vinette, had been seen with an ear-to-ear grin plastered across his face, with no regret for his action whatsoever. This traumatic event caused Crews to read further into experiences that others have had, driving him to share his experience with the world on Twitter. When I read about that, I didn't think it was real. I didn't think it, I'm not the type of person to read about something and be like, oh, that's probably real. Like, if I don't think it's real, I'm going to do more research into it. And I read 3 articles about that and Terry Crews coming out with his, experience with sexual assault.
This is with Terry Crews' side and not the perpetrator's side, correct?
No, yeah,
okay.
This is Terry Crews.
Okay. And now with Terry Crews, I can understand his mindset on it. I feel especially when it comes to rape or sexual assault in any matter, it is definitely hidden a lot in the public eye, for a multitude of reasons. For someone's reputation, it could be fear of what said perpetrator will do, especially when the perpetrator is in such a place of power.
Exactly.
And I can understand why he was a little fearful to step forward, especially with Hollywood and things like that. It will be distorted.
And
anyway, continue on.
Oh yeah, and I just want to add on to that. It's also a case of how the media kind of warps.
Absolutely.
This kind of
Media
thing,
will warp
it will definitely...
It'll be completely exaggerated, or it could be...
undermined. Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
Kind of just swept under the rug, oh, this doesn't really matter.
Yeah, this never happened. What are y'all talking about? No, yeah.
So, I also read, and this is from a, official, I'm pretty sure government-run website, and it gives statistics. It's a statistic website about specific crimes.
Okay.
And
probably government.
Exactly. So I had put it in. I put the details in and stuff like that. And it had read that between 2004 and this year, 2024, between 20 years, there have been over 29,000 rape incidents and over 30,000 offenses reported in the U.S. alone. And it covers about 21% of the population, American population.
Okay.
In 1992, the most accounts of rape were recorded in the U.S. However, in 2012, that first place spot, as messed up as that is to say had been taken. And I think when I looked it up on that same website, it had been at least, I want to say 1.5 to 2 times as many increase. Yeah. Okay. It had been almost double what 1992 had.
For the U.S. alone.
Yes, for the U.S.
Okay.
alone. All the statistics are in the United States alone.
I feel like with that, statistically speaking, there absolutely could have been many more that
weren't counted or brought to the public attention.
There were a lot of cases. Are you aware of the differences between statutory and enforceable? Could you explain that to me real quick?
So statutory, enforceable. Statutory is the unlawful sexual intercourse between two people, and one is under the age of consent. And as an example of that being like Pennsylvania, the age of consent I think is 16.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is surprising. I thought all across the U.S. it was all 18. But I'm pretty sure. I'm kind of like...
You are seen as a legal adult in almost all states
as 18.
At 18. But you can give your consent at the age of 16.
At the age of 16 or above. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is also crazy to me because the statistics also say that victims between 16 and 24, like an age range, are the most vulnerable.
Yep,
and stuff like that.
New adults learning how to live life. A lot of it is
exactly
manipulation, especially
of those who they may look up to.
Yes,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, usually they'll be connected to the person. They'll know the person.
Yeah, it's also crazy too, because while you mentioned that, 73% of sexual assaults but mostly sexual assaults, it said, are non-stranger, meaning the victim knows the person.
And that is how a lot of perpetrators and predators and different things like that is how they're able to pull off something like this. Most of the time it's a lot of manipulation. It's bringing the victim's guard down because they're so close to you. So why would they ever do anything to hurt you when that was their true intent? But they didn't let you see that. They got close to you first.
Yeah, exactly.
So going back to now, does statutory rape also include is it just for under the age of 16 consent, or is statutory being like, say you're married and your partner?
It does also count with stuff like forcible marriage and
a lot of that comes back into like you said, 1992 was one of the all-time highs recorded before 2011.
2012, I think. Yeah.
Or that's fine.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Now I feel like a lot of that is, and this is not to undermine men's sexual assaults during 1992 or anything like that, but with cases involving that during that time period, a lot of women who were married would be sexually assaulted and even raped by their husbands. Because you were meant to keep it quiet because that was your husband. You didn't air out your personal business.
Exactly.
And at that point the man was right. So if you didn't want to do it and he did, well, too bad. He's the man of the house. What he says goes.
What he says goes. He's the king of the castle, and anything that goes against him will be not believed.
I will say this, not disclosing people or anything.
Yes.
But I will say that I know somebody from that time period.
Yes.
She was with a man, had 2 kids together, so that obviously they had already done the deed consensually.
Yes.
And her youngest child is actually what is known as a rape baby. A baby who was not aborted or anything like that and was to full term. And she had given birth to the baby, but the baby wasn't caused due to consentful sex.
Yes.
It was rape when it happened.
And this person, were they in any way impaired or under any substance use?
With this goes back to the time that this was happening, the time period, back when husbands ruled over the household. So that goes back.
Yeah, like with 60s, 50s kind of, like housewife.
Yeah, where what man said went.
Yeah.
And that is how she had the rape baby.
Mm. Oh.
Yeah.
So somebody very, very,
very
close to
yes.
you, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, it doesn't help. I feel like it kind of goes down that genetic line, you and me both. And someone we also know, who is also very close to us.
It's a very sad thing to
experience or hear about, just in general.
If in the beginning it was very shocking to hear some of these things come from men and women that I've been close to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's shocking, and at this point it's almost devastating because of how normalized it is. It's very normalized. You hear a lot of people, especially people that you're close to, and if you open up that discussion with them, I mean, obviously some people will shut down, and that's just how they react based on what happened to them, which is absolutely valid.
Absolutely.
But like when you do get in a conversation like that, and you do start talking with people, and you start realizing that some of these people, you had no idea that anything like this could have ever happened to them, and that's because they stayed silent for so long.
Exactly. And it's also that like modernized, especially with men, like how most men nowadays, you have to be tough, you have to be.
No, it was,
and it's just a generational thing.
It was a mindset that has absolutely been passed down.
Like parents born in the 50s and 60s, like fathers who drilled it into their children born in the early 80s and late 80s.
And 80s.
Exactly. Who then drill it into their 90s kids, and then the cycle continues.
But it really is devastating to see how normalized it is. It's when you hear things like that, it's, before you were shocked, you were like, oh my god, you went through something that was similar to what I had gone through, and I thought nobody could ever know what I was going through because it was so quiet. It was so quiet. And then it's talking to these people and hearing them open up about it, it's like, why is it so normalized now? It's almost like
we've become desensitized.
Yeah, we've been
in a way. We've definitely become desensitized to this kind of
where
thing.
It's been so normalized in a sense. So yeah, I mean, it used to be devastating in one way, and now it's just devastating because of how often you hear about it.
Exactly, and now it's also, not even. It's like old news. You're just like, oh, there's another rape victim. Oh, shocking. Well, it's shocking. I guess there's another one to put on the roster.
Yeah,
it's
really
just kind of that really messed up.
And it's sad. It went from devastating to, oh my god, I can't believe we went through that, to devastating as, why is it happening so much?
Yeah,
I mean, so anyway, back to more of the details.
Yeah, back to the.
We had brought up statutory and forcible rape.
Yes.
And you had started bringing up statistics as well. Can you get a little more into those for me?
Yes. So I think I already mentioned that the 73% are non-stranger, and then the other 28% are strangers. And about 7%, which is also another really, really wild thing to, learn, that 7% are related to the victim in some way, blood related. So
like aunt, uncle,
grandparents, siblings, it could be parents, exactly, and that's only 7%.
But that is still, wow.
I know, it's crazy.
I mean, it's a single digit, but
it's
the fact that
it's the fact that it is a single digit.
Yeah, it's the fact that the percentage is so high to where you can record it.
Exactly, it's high enough to be recorded.
Absolutely.
Another thing are that young women and girls are the most likely victim to these crimes.
Okay.
And it is on leading onward with this same statistic is that it is very much a possibility for male victims to be victimized.
And it's
even if it isn't a very high percentage, not high enough to be accounted, there's still.
And it's also the fact that I feel like a lot of the time the reason why it's so low is because going back to that generational thing where no men are supposed to be tough, blah, 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 blah.
They're not
It's like,
coming forward.
They're not coming forward. They're embarrassed that
Exactly.
they let it happen to them. And the thing is
that they were vulnerable like that.
Exactly. And the thing is that there's so many different circumstances onto why a sexual assault could happen. You could be impaired.
Exactly. Under the guise of any substance
or anything like that. You're
kind.
Out with your friends. You're having drinks.
Exactly.
You meet somebody out in public and boom, done. But with men, I also feel like they're kind of more turned away because men are seen as stronger than women. So a lot of people sit there and go, well, I mean, this is a 5'11" dude weighing 190, 200.
Yeah.
So it's like, why weren't you able to defend yourself against this woman who was like weighs 130, 5'5"? Like, how could you? And a lot of people will sit there and blame them and be like, well, it must not have been true because it doesn't make sense why a man of your caliber allowed somebody to do that. But then I feel like it really does go back to those percentages, and it's like you could be under the substance, and it also goes back to that 7%.
Oh yeah.
Where it could be family. Like, you would never expect your family to do that. Never in a million years.
Never in a million years.
Never in a million years would I sit here, and I'm grateful to sit here and be like, I know that couldn't happen with my family, and I know that my family won't push that.
Yeah.
And you even like you said 73% was for people that you knew. Yep. Correct? That was 73%?
Yep.
With things like that, it's like a lot of these people will be in your life for years and years and years before they ever pull a move like that on you, and you would never expect it.
Get that close to you, which makes it hurt so that much more.
And it could even be things like, your parents' friends. They're there and they're around, and you think, my parents let this person into my life. My parents are here to protect me. And of course, my parents wouldn't bring somebody like this into my life who they would believe
harm me
could do something like that.
Exactly.
And they're in your life, and you let those walls down, and next thing you know, something happens. So, I mean, that's a lot of men's statistics, is they're too ashamed, too embarrassed, or when they do bring it up, they're shut down because a lot of people stigmatize the fact that, well, if you're a man and you're stronger than a woman, why did you let a woman do this to you?
Yeah.
Or even
another man.
It's like, really?
Exactly.
Are you sure?
It's the same.
It's like, oh, well, I know him, and he only likes women. He would never do that to you. It's like, but you weren't there for. And I feel like
when it happened.
That's a lot of thing. I feel like it's to believe and support the victim. Now, I will say, and this is not to undermine anybody who's gone through any sort of sexual assault.
Absolutely.
I will sit here and also admit that I am a victim as well, which is why I don't want anybody to feel like I'm undermining victims as a victim myself.
You and me both, sister.
But there are,
unfortunately,
there are parts where what's it called? Lost my train of thought for a second.
It's okay.
But there are times, and it's good to support and help out and believe the victim, unless there's stuff to prove otherwise. I feel a lot of times now there are people who will sit there and throw those words,
allegations around.
Lightly.
Exactly. And that's also like that trouble of the desensitization of the modern day.
Yeah, where people throw those out and basically cry wolf.
Exactly.
And then it's like, then there are the actual victims who have gone through something, and they're kind of just turned away because there are so many people who sit there and like to cry wolf about this
exactly
type of thing.
So it's kind of like, and it's as weird as a comparison as it may be, but it still kind of stands like how you see on TikTok, like people faking those like disorders, like
yes
DID and ADHD and autism.
People find problems as a way to build character, and
exactly.
That is not
it's not
no.
that.
And
like, get a real personality, man.
Yeah, right.
Get a real
Right?
personality.
That's what I'm saying. No, but it's,
you could be a funny guy, but you don't have to be a sexual assault victim to be a funny guy.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
And it's a case of, you know, supporting the victims, but if there is something to kind of be like, hey, this perpetrator, I put in air quotes.
And air quotes.
Because sometimes they're not perpetrators.
Exactly.
Sometimes it goes back to people throwing things. People are like, oh, I don't like this person, or oh, my ex dumped me, and because my ex dumped me, now I'm going to say that any previous consentful situation that we were in,
not
I can
consensual
absolutely
at all.
just sit here and say, well, all of those consensual times while you were in a relationship weren't really consensual, and then it's kind of battling he said, she said.
Mm-hmm. And then it's harder to know what to believe.
Yeah,
like,
and
to
weed
side
out
with.
the truth and the lies.
Exactly.
And then you start, you know, then it starts becoming detrimental to actual victims because they're turned away and they're kind of shunned, and it's like, are you being serious though? Are you?
Yeah.
Or are you doing this for attention? And then it's
exactly.
And then it goes back to just
just
being there and supporting victims, especially if you know them in your life.
Yeah.
And if you're close with them, to support them, and to believe them, and you know, I mean, obviously, if these are people who, you know, for example, if they sit there and say, oh well, I was in a relationship with this person for 3 years, and every single time we did it, it was all unconsensual, and then it's like, was it, or are you just upset about a breakup? Exactly.
Like,
or are you grossed out because you're like, God, now that I'm out of that relationship, this person is so unattractive to me, and it's like, ew, I could never see myself having intercourse with them, period, at all. But it's like, while you were in the relationship, you grew that bond and did have sexual experiences. So now you're gonna sit here and be like, oh no,
he or she raped me, he or she sexually assaulted me.
Yeah, yep.
Even though none of it's true.
Yeah.
But of course, the public eye, whoever brings this to the public eye, the public doesn't know. They weren't there.
No,
so
absolutely.
They don't know who to believe.
No, yeah. But yeah, it really goes back to supporting victims and believing them and taking care of them and checking up on them and
just generally supporting
them. And it really truly is a very traumatic thing. And I know people are like, well, obviously it's a traumatic thing. Nobody wants to go through.
Exactly.
Absolutely nobody wants to go through that. And the thing is that victims cope in all different ways. And you really have to watch out for that. And especially if you know the person well and you know how they react to certain things, or if you're sitting there and you're like, this person doesn't seem like themselves. And you find out, and you know, you keep an eye on them, you watch out, you make sure they're doing all right.
Exactly. Don't mean to like cut you off or anything.
No,
but
absolutely.
Kind of leading on with, not like moving on, but like adding to what you're saying with people coping in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah. When I was victimized, I had done something to myself that I didn't think I would ever have to worry about doing to myself. And it was very bad, and I feel like as wonderful and supportive as the people that I have in my life are.
Sorry, I had to get up in there.
No, it's okay. But specifically,
laugh through the pain.
Real. I forgot I can't swear. This is for a school project. I was about to be like, real short. Yeah.
We're gonna have to cut.
We're gonna have to cut some of this out.
Real.
But you know, kind of carrying on with what you were saying, the reaction of the thing that I had done to myself from being a victim, and the reaction from very specific people that we know of that I will not name drop.
Yes.
And I got you.
I see where you're coming from.
But I feel like the way that these people had reacted to
wasn't the best way to support.
It was not the best way to support me.
And I think the thing is,
and the way that they had, I can't even air quote the word attempted, because it wasn't really an attempt at all. They barely tried. One of them had no say in it, and he
well,
kind of just...
I know that.
Yep.
I know she had
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's why I had
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if it would be too much to share my experience or not.
No, that would be absolutely no problem.
Okay.
I feel like people deserve to hear
especially from
this
somebody,
topic from people who have experience.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that it's like those of us who feel strong enough and have healed as much as they possibly can for how long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes everybody different times to heal, and I've said this to people over anything in general, but especially when it comes to this. But that mindset that you go into after something like that happens is very detrimental to a person.
Exactly.
When I will share my story a little bit, I won't go into graphic detail.
No, yeah.
I was on a trip with my father.
Yes.
And it was my father and a bunch of his friends that he's known since middle school, high school. So he's known these people for decades.
Yeah.
And I had stayed up one night, and I had been talking with one of my dad's friends. It was just me and him out by a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking. And again, this guy has been in my life since I was baby rocking age.
Baby rocking, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still talking about your father and not the perpetrator yet.
Well, the perpetrator is somebody that my father knows.
Yes, one of those very close friends.
Yes. So the thing was is that this guy had been in my life, the perpetrator had been in my life since I was very, 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 very young.
Yeah.
And I had been left alone with him in the past, growing up as a kid. I would be at home by myself. My parents would be at work. He'd stop by and be like, oh, hey, girl, I'm just like stopping by, picking something up. Or, oh, your dad said he was going to be home soon. So I was already in the area. So I'm just going to chill here until he gets here. And I'm like, okay, great. Well,
exactly.
Chat with him, no problem. I've never had any issues. And I never thought that this person in my life, knowing what I knew about him, that he would ever do something like this. He never seemed like the type of person to do this.
Exactly.
And at this point, I was, at the time, intoxicated under a substance.
Yeah.
And everything was fine until it wasn't. And then, luckily, I was able to get out of the situation before it turned in... It stayed as a sexual assault. This is one of my experiences.
Yes.
It stayed as a sexual assault. And I was able to get away before it turned into rape.
Yes.
But I was very quiet about it. I remember hiding, and I remember sitting there, and I was bawling my eyes out. I was heaving. I didn't know what to do with myself. I had gotten home from that trip the next morning, or afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat up in my room, and I felt disgusting. I wanted to, not to get gory.
Tear your skin off.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to tear my skin off. I didn't want what he had touched. I felt disgusting.
Exactly.
I felt stupid. I felt naive. I thought, how could I let this happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
To me. How could I let this happen to me? I thought I was smarter than that. I thought I knew better. I thought I would see the signs and not have to worry about being in anything like that. Like, why didn't I see those signs?
Exactly.
I should have seen signs.
Why didn't I see it coming?
And
you can't, it's like that natural
and you
need to blame yourself.
No, and
especially when they're very close to you. Like, this person can do no wrong. It's my fault.
And a lot of what I brought up like earlier, it goes back to the 73%. And with this, what I had brought up earlier with it being, like, people kind of turn a blind eye and they're like, well, are you telling the truth or are you lying? How do I know you're not lying? You could ruin this person's life making these allegations. Don't ever do something like that if it never happened. And that's how I grew up. So I was very silent about it until a family member of mine we were in a deep conversation one night, and we had been talking, and it's about a year. I had been healing from this on my own alone for a year. This guy had still been coming around my house. This guy had still been talking to family. and it was in a conversation, and somebody straight up looked me dead in the eyes and said, I need you to be honest with me, and you cannot lie. Have you ever had somebody do something like this to you, based on previous conversation?
Yes.
That was being had in that moment. And in that moment, I felt like that was my chance. That was my open door.
That was
to
your
finally
spotlight.
Talk about it. Exactly. And I brought it up, and we were all very calm and serious about it. And keep in mind, this man has a family, has a wife and kids, and and I sat there and I was like, I'm like, me saying something will not just destroy his life, it'll destroy his family's life, and they don't deserve it because they did nothing wrong in this situation, and that's what I was fearful of.
Yes.
Conversation had been brought up, and where it had happened is a very well-known place in my household. Yeah. Like, it's where my dad will go like 1 month out of or 1 weekend out of every month kind of deal, and go up there with his friends and stuff. And you know, it had been a couple weeks after it had finally gotten out, so over a year at this point from when it actually happened.
Yes.
And I was talking with somebody, and they were like, hey, would you ever want to go back up there? We can bring your boyfriend, we can do this, we can do that. And I had said yes. I had said, I would love to be back there, blah, blah, blah. And people sat there and were like, well, you must be lying, because like I could just never see me going back to a place like this. And at this point, like I said, I had been healing on my own for about a year, and it turned into a very big thing for me, very big blow up, family wise. And I had tried to explain that I had grown to the point where I know that place did nothing to me. That place right there has been a very big part of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the perpetrator to take anything else from me. He already took my dignity. He already took so much from me, and I felt like so weak and vulnerable, and I felt disgusting, and I finally brought myself back to that, and back to where I was, and I sat there and realized that that place did nothing to me. It did nothing to me. It's a great place. It was the person. Why am I going to let what that person did to me
ruin that place for you?
Ruin that place for me, and just take things from my life. They had already taken so much of my mental state and my feelings to myself, and even feelings towards other people. It's going on 2 years now.
That you've been healing?
That I've been healing. Where did we leave off?
We left off at you not letting the perpetrator ruin that place for you.
And so that sparked a very big fight. Within family and everything. It was a lot of people. Well, there were people that didn't believe me, that figured if I wanted to go back there, I must have been crazy and I must have been lying about it the whole time. It started a very big thing for me.
Like a blowout. Yeah.
Yes, after opening up about it, I ended up getting into a very nasty and heated fight to where I had to leave my house for a week. Packed up. Sorry.
It's okay. It's alright, yeah.
The fight, I left home that night with nothing but my purse. And the next day, when I knew everybody would be out of the house, I went back, packed a suitcase full of all the stuff I could find for then, threw in my shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and that was it. And some clothes, packed it up, and I was away from home for about a week before I came home after dust settled, and I did talk with the person who I had gotten into a massive fight with.
Yeah.
And we had talked about it, and I also think it comes from people who have also been sexually assaulted. They're, especially parents. I feel parents are the type of people who they want to protect their kids, and they don't. And it breaks their heart to know that something like this could happen.
That happened, yes.
And they blame themselves for it, and sometimes the way people cope is they sit there and go, it's easier to sit there and think my kid lied about it
than to face the reality that it actually...
Exactly.
That my kid was harmed and I wasn't there to protect them.
Exactly. And very detrimental mindset. During my time of healing, I was shut off from people. I didn't talk to people. I thought, if this person could do it to me, who's to say somebody that I had been closer with personally and not a family friend, and it was my friend, who's to say they wouldn't be able to do the same thing to me.
Exactly. It's like that. It just, as soon as that trust is broken, it's hard to come back. Exactly. It's hard to come back from it.
I lost a lot of friends at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost a lot of myself at that time as well. I lost a lot of who I was. I fell into a very bad mindset. I was self-harming in a sense. There would be times where I would physically inflict injuries on myself.
Yes.
There were even points where I was doing things like starving myself without people even realizing. You know, I would wake up in the morning. You know, nobody ever really thought anything because nobody really saw me in the morning. So I could get away without eating breakfast. And then at school I could lie to people and say, oh, well, I ate a huge thing yesterday or this morning, and then I have stuff to eat at home.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't eat lunch. And then I would get home and I would, be able to hide that with going to work. I would be able to say, oh, sorry, I can't be home for dinner.
Like I'm working.
I can't be home for dinner, blah, 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 blah. Or to there be like, yeah, like I ate so much, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm just full and can't eat anything right now. And that went on for several months. I lost a lot of weight at that time. And as Leona's sister, I know she can vouch. Seeing me drop a very large amount of weight in such a short time.
Yes, to the point where it concerned those around us.
Yes.
They thought it was due to.
They thought it was something
very much worse.
Yeah, they thought it had something to do with taking substances, and it wasn't. It was just.
It was.
My mind was destroyed at that time. I mean, everything that I saw in myself, I didn't see anymore. I didn't see somebody who was confident anymore. I didn't see myself as somebody who could be proud of how I looked, and I've always been very insecure about how I look.
Yes.
And even then, I feel like there's another part that I would like to bring up if you're okay. It kind of brings up statistics, but not really.
Yes.
But it's the mindset that people have where their first reaction is, "Are you okay? How are you feeling? Who did this? What actions do you want to take to fix this?" Some people's first reactions are, well, what were you wearing? Well, what did you say to them? Well, I guess if, you're dressed like this and like that, and
you kind of have it coming.
You're asking for it.
I know.
And it's disgusting.
It is very, very disgusting.
I can even sit here right now and say, I remember exactly what I was wearing when it happened. I was wearing my red and black marble sweatpants. I don't know if you remember them. They were the really, really baggy ones that you couldn't see anything in. I think I remember those. They were the red ones. I was wearing those, and I was wearing a large gray sweatshirt, like a throw-over hoodie. Keep in mind it was during fall, and we were sitting outside by a campfire. Yeah, so of course the night's getting a little colder, so you need that. So it was throwing on layers and keeping myself warm. Oh yeah. And I was sexually assaulted. So. So it's not the victim's fault. It's not the victim's fault. It's and with how I dress now, goes back to healing myself and being like I am more gaining that self-confidence again. I am more than what you left me at. Exactly. You left me with nothing. And the feelings towards myself were nothing, and I hated myself for months on months. I know. And the thing is that right now, I will admit, I have healed a lot, and I know other people struggle to heal as much as I have healed in the time span that I have. Exactly. And it's awful, but now, which I think is crazy, I tend to not wear very revealing outfits all the time. I mean, sometimes, you know, you get cute, you really like the top, it looks good. And especially with my body type, it's like, even if I'm wearing the same, I could be wearing the same top as my best friend. And my best friend has nothing, she's
flatter than a cutting board.
Flatter than a cutting board, absolutely. And I could be wearing the exact same outfit as her, same brand, bought at the same store, same time. But I could be seen as asking for it because of how my body looks.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's like disgusting.
It is. It's terrible.
How are you gonna look at somebody? Like, just the other day, I was wearing a very cute top, and I was wearing jeans, and I was wearing a zip-up hoodie that was unzipped.
Yeah.
I'd gone to a hockey game. A hockey game, and it was definitely a crop top. I will say that it was a crop top.
It was a crop top.
But I was wearing jeans, I was wearing a crop top, and I was wearing a zip-up sweatshirt.
Yeah.
And I went to go help my friend out with some stuff at hockey, and some dude that he knew turned to him and said that I needed to cover up and wear more clothes.
Ew.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And literally, that was maybe the first 5 minutes I was there, and I was there for a good few hours.
Yeah.
And that was in the first 5 minutes, and within that split second of my friend saying that somebody had said that to him, I had zipped up my hoodie, and that hoodie did not come unzipped until I was inside my closet getting changed for bed. And it's people making comments and
exactly, and it's like that stigmatization.
And it's so normalized of making comments about somebody like that.
It's absolutely disgusting.
And
like
normalizing that it's normalizing a gateway to being a victim of sexual assault and rape, and it's just crazy to me.
It's atrocious.
It leaves me speechless.
It's really atrocious.
It is. But anyway, do you have any more to say from your end of? I know you collected a bunch of information on this before we did this, so I want to see if you had any more information to kickstart some more.
Yes. I just wanted to, as we wrap it up here, sexual assault and rape, as uncomfortable and as awkward and gross as it might be to talk about, it is absolutely under no circumstances something that should be swept under the rug.
No, you should never feel ashamed for allowing yourself to be in that position.
Exactly.
And a lot of victims will put blame on themselves because they allowed themselves to be in a position
and
or
they
in a
thought they were
situation
stronger than that.
And a lot of people will sit there and be like, well, me personally, I know how I would react as a person in this situation. It's like,
yeah, but you wouldn't do that until you're experiencing it.
No, exactly. I thought before any sexual assault and rape and anything like that, before anything like that had happened to me, I had sat there and said, no, I'm strong. I'll make noise. I will cause a scene. I'll fight it off.
When it happened to me, I had that same mindset.
Exactly, and you sit right there in that moment, and you're like, how did I get here?
Exactly.
I thought I was going to be stronger than this, and I wasn't. And then you feel weak, and you feel stupid.
And you don't know how to react.
And exactly, and you don't know how to go along with it. It goes back to a mentality, which is actually psychological.
Yeah.
I took a psych class, and we had discussed this topic, and I was very into psych class and mental disorders and different things like that, and a natural
component
is, and I know you've heard this, it's fight, flight, freeze.
Exactly.
You go in swinging. So danger happens, whatever danger, whether it's people attacking you or people trying to sexually assault you. In those moments of danger, your brain flips a switch. So you're either fighting, and you're fighting your damn hardest. Sorry if that word was bad.
It's fine. Damn is tame compared to some of the stuff I hear in that class. It's crazy.
But so it's like you're either fighting your hardest and you're throwing punches and you are kicking and screaming and fighting back as much as you can, or you're running and you're sliding out of that situation and booking it to somewhere, some way, somehow, or you freeze and your body shuts down and you go limp, and it's part of that defensive,
and that's
brain, that mindset. It's you shut down, everything goes numb, you clock out for the day.
No, literally.
Everything is gone.
Literally.
And it sucks because a lot of cases where it goes from a sexual assault to a rape, it is very much a high possibility that, and again, this is not to blame the victim, this is
not to undermine.
This is a mental component, this is something that everybody's brain is wired slightly different in.
Exactly.
But a lot of times when it goes from a sexual assault to a rape, it tends to be because the victim, their mindset in the fight, flight, or freeze is to freeze.
Exactly. And I feel like, I feel like the freeze kind of comes in when you don't, I've always had this happen to me. If I need to fight, I will. But if I need to run, I also will. And I feel like in certain situations, your brain doesn't know which one is right because both seem like the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it's very difficult.
Exactly. Trying to, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, either one, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do.
It's like every life lesson that you had been given and you had been taught, and even when it comes to stranger danger, kids have been raised, and I know at least we were, and I'm sure millions of other kids have been raised, stranger danger. If somebody grabs you, this is where you go for to fight back. This is the spot you hit them in.
You kick, fight, scream.
You go for the eyes, you go for the jugular, you go for sensitive weak spots where they will drop.
Exactly. And you can flight
and it's
easier.
And it's whether you're being grabbed to be kidnapped, or you're being grabbed to be raped, or you're being grabbed in a fight. Your brain doesn't know what to do. It's like everything that you had been taught and you had been raised on, it's in those moments, it's all fighting at once, and you don't remember. It's like going up for a presentation in class, and you're sitting there and you're like,
I just spent 3 days researching all this stuff.
Yeah, I spent 3 days researching this. I know this
by heart.
Like I know this like the back of my hand. Like I know this. You can ask me a question and I will drop an answer like it's no problem.
Yeah.
But then it's like when you get up there and that panic and that anxiousness starts to set in, it's like you blank. You don't remember anything. It's like, I just learned about this for 3 days. I can't tell you anything right now.
Yeah. Because
of the mindset that you're in and the way your brain kicks in those responses, and it goes back to being like that for being sexually assaulted or raped or kidnapped, and it's sad. It really is. It's sad. And I mean the fact that a lot of people at this point, they leave their houses in fear. I mean, I know I do want to bring more light to men's sexual assaults, but as a woman who's been sexually assaulted, I feel like I automatically gear towards women as a woman.
Yeah. And of course, neither of you and I have any male genetic inside of us. Maybe a little bit of testosterone, but
right, pumping through our
exactly.
veins. No, but it's like women, women leave their houses, and if they're going on a jog, whether it's early in the morning or in the evening or even just during the day, you can't wear 2 headphones out because you got to be aware of everything around you. And I get that. Women have learned how, if they're leaving work and they need to go into a parking garage, hold your keys in between your hands like you're Wolverine, or always have a taser or a pepper spray or something to defend yourself. And it's like the fact that the world has gotten to a point like that where there are people out there who will go through those lengths to get to that point. And I also would like to bring up, if you don't mind, the psychological part of some rapists. I feel like I would like to bring up, if that's okay with you. One thing that I like to actively think about. The one thing that I would like to the one thing that I want to bring up is, have you ever heard of the saying where when the abused becomes the abuser? Have you heard?
I have.
So when it comes to things like that, for other people who don't know, is, especially people who were sexually assaulted as kids, they grew up being raped all the time,
just that
sexually assaulted,
childhood
and
trauma and
exactly.
that loss of innocence.
But the thing is that that's your psychosexual development stages. But in those young childhood years, that's the foundation of who you are as a person.
Where you're most malleable. And
where you can be built and molded and taught into who you become.
Exactly.
And when the only love you're getting in your life is either abuse or even rape, you see that as a form of love, because that's what you grew up with. Your brain doesn't know that touching somebody like that isn't okay. Because you grew up
it's like
thinking,
normalized.
Yeah, you had grown up thinking that it was okay because it had happened to you for years and years and years and years and years, and could even still be going on.
Yeah.
And because of how their brain is, they just sit there and they think it's okay. It's okay because I went through that and I'm fine, so it's okay if it happens to somebody. And that's also something that comes up, is the mindset, especially from these people who had been victims, where they go from being the victim to being the perpetrator, because that's how their mind has been wired since a young age. I mean, I hear stories about people who had been sexually assaulted and raped by family members, and family members would have other people come over, and family friends, and they would all just have basically. There is a famous murderer, actually. It's a female murderer.
Name? You can drop that name.
The name I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But she was a very popular female serial killer. What ended up happening to her, long story short, is throughout her childhood, it was like her grandfather and her uncles and family friends, and they would rape her over and over and over again. By 14, she had left the house. She was an orphan. Ended up prostituting. And what she would do is, because she was a prostitute, these guys who would get handsy with her during her prostitution, done, murdered, dead. Okay? She would kill them. And in her way, she was looking at them like, you're all rapists, you're all perpetrators, you're all sexual assaulters, you're just disgusting men, and I'm doing right to the world by getting rid of you. There was actually one man that she had let go, which I would like to bring up, is this man, he was like that, dude that didn't really get out.
Conventionally unattractive.
Conventionally unattractive, and it was a guy who never really dated, couldn't really get a girlfriend, and kind of did just want something. Like, he needed something, so he went to a prostitute. And it wasn't because he was a nasty, mentally nasty man. He was just like, I don't know how else to get anything, because I can't get anything on my own.
Exactly.
And if you're a woman who sits there and go, that's my boundary, leave it at that. He was the type of man to go, oh, okay, you don't want me to do that, I won't do this. Like, I'm just doing it for this reason. I'm not trying to be nasty about it. And she couldn't bring herself to kill him because he wasn't a bad dude. Actually surfaced him and let him out the car. Let him go. Because he wasn't a nasty man. It was something totally different, and it wasn't like those men who had hurt her.
Yeah. He didn't go to her with a malicious intent.
Yes.
He went to her for his own, I guess, needs or wants.
Yeah,
in a sense,
but in a respectful,
in a very respectful,
in a respectful way, as respectful as you can possibly get in
going to a prostitute.
Going to a prostitute.
Exactly.
No, but that's like my thing. It's, I mean, growing up, growing up in any sort of circumstance, you have one of two things that you can do. You can. Have you ever heard of a dandelion child?
No.
So a dandelion child is somebody who's very resilient and who has been through the trenches, in a sense, who have been dragged through the mud, but they're still growing. It's like a dandelion. Think about it, right? You see the concrete sidewalks and everything, whatever, and yet through the concrete, you can get dandelions. You're growing through those hardships, and that's the thing. You can either grow, or you can become.
Mm-hmm.
For example, another person who is very, very well known, Oprah Winfrey,
Oh.
had been sexually assaulted, sexually abused, and everything like that. And look at how she turned out.
She's a saint.
She's one of the
wonderful person.
She's great, and she made something of herself, even going through those hardships and those things that will destroy most people. She grew from it, and she became more.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you grow from spite, or you grow from healing, or you grow from maturity, or you grow for yourself, it's still growth.
Exactly.
And then you have people, for example, the woman that I had just been talking about, where she, right? You can go. The thing about Oprah is a national name. I mean, you say Oprah and you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Exactly.
And then you have this woman who went into prostitution and was murdering people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, you
can go one of two ways.
You can grow or you can become.
Exactly.
And it
sucks, but it's still that kind of psychological factor that you mentioned.
And that's one thing. And like, I don't want to sit here and say I have pity for rapists or sexual assaulters or predators or anything like that. I will never want to say that. But what I will say is whoever became that because of what happened to them, I will admit, I am a little sorry. Because you never know how that person could have turned out if that never happened to them. They could be one of the smartest people on the planet. You know, it's like there was so much that could have come from you as a person.
Yeah.
If this hadn't happened to you, you could have been totally different. You wouldn't be in jail or in and out or through rehab or on the streets or raping and sexually assaulting other people. Like it never would have happened if you hadn't gone through that yourself. And for people that has happened to, they're still victims some way, somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Now, obviously, you know, if you were just a rapist or a sexual assaulter or a predator, perpetrator, whatever.
In general,
With nothing like that, you're disgusting. Like, I'm sorry.
If you had a totally normal life and are just...
And listen, it could absolutely... And I think a lot of things is with people, just bad people in general. General. A lot of times it's due to either past trauma and even just mental illness that's gone undiagnosed or unmedicated or hasn't gotten the help it needs, and it turned into something wild.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
Is there anything else you would like to say? I don't know if this has to go on for...
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure...
I'm pretty sure I talked longer than your needed podcast time.
Yeah, it's okay. No, you're good. But Lord knows it's good to have this kind of info in, especially coming from two people, you and I, who are both who were both victimized in our lives, and kind of that breach of trust that kind of just sticks with you.
And I think the thing is that it's like, the reason why I don't have a problem is because I have healed, and in part of my healing is to make some noise about it.
Exactly. Bring it to the limelight.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Lord knows people needs to know about this.
Exactly. So many people, their voices go unheard, and then these people who are out there doing this to them just get to live.
Exactly, they get to get away with it,
they get to
with
move
no
on with their
regrets.
lives, and they get to do whatever they want, and and it's so devastating. But it's one thing that bringing voice to it, when you know you're strong enough to bring voice, I feel like, for me at least, it does come with healing.
Yes,
is being able to shout about it. It's
say something.
Exactly. It's because there are so many people through the healing process. They could have been sexually assaulted years ago. They could be women in their 40s and 50s and even 60s and won't say anything about it ever.
Ever.
And this could have happened to them when they were children or young adults, and now it's years or decades later and they don't say anything, and it's sad because it can really wear on somebody. And I think part of my healing is making some noise.
Exactly.
Saying something.
Bringing it to the front lines.
Bringing it to the front lines so that people who have gone through it know that
it's okay to share your experience.
It's
as
okay
uncomfortable and awkward and weird as it might get. I mean,
sometimes you gotta go with the uncomfortable.
Exactly. It also kind of brings to that idea of like older generations are like I know someone we know, this person's reaction to me, to her seeing my self-harm, she was like very aggressive with it. She wasn't like,
it's
why are you doing this to yourself? Like, do you need to talk to me? And no, she this person, at this point I'll just say she just like didn't react the way I thought she would, and that reaction from her drove me further into that depression and state of mind where, this is my fault. Like, if these people who should be protecting me are acting and reacting like this towards it, what? I'm like, then I definitely did something wrong.
And that, having the people around you to support you will be something that is always going to help when it comes to things like that. Knowing that there's somebody on your side somewhere at some point that you need to break down because of it. You have somebody that you can sit there and break down around, and you don't have to feel alone through it. And it's, it's terrifying when, you say you finally do speak up about it, or you speak of what you did to cope with it, whether it was healthy or unhealthy. And you get those people kind of shunning you, and it's terrifying because it's like, these are my people, these are the people that I expected to stick around and to support me, and now they're gone. And the fact that these people that I've put so much trust and love and everything into reacted this way, I must be the problem. I am the problem. And that will destroy a victim's mental health.
Oh, yeah. It's terrible.
Sitting there. And that's why it is so important as somebody who, that's why it's so important, one, as a victim, to surround yourself with people who will support you. And two, if you know people that have been through anything like this, whether it was the most minor thing of, like, for example,
Terry Crews,
yeah, where it was something as simple, air quotes, as being groped.
If you don't kind of have have the person or people that can support you in your time of need, it's hard to come out on your own.
Yeah.
It's terrible to think about, but it happens far too often.
No, and it's sad.
It really is. Whew. It was a wild ride.
Yes. Do you wanna wrap up your
we can wrap it up. I think I'm gonna have to edit like an hour worth of footage.
Yeah.
Or like over an hour worth of footage.
My bad.
It's alright. No, the people deserve to hear this kind of thing now. But we basically got it all down. Hit all points of
and like 10 times more than all.
Yeah, we definitely went a little overboard, but it's worth sharing our own experiences, you know?
Preach to that.
Exactly. And,
So don't be afraid to speak up about it. Find somebody that you feel you can trust.
Exactly.
And if that person's not somebody that you can trust and turns out some other way, remember that, like, you're not the problem. And yeah, I mean, it sucks, but
it's the hard truth.
The healing part is different for every person.
Exactly.
I know my healing process isn't the same as yours, or my healing process isn't the same as 10 other people I know. They healed and coped in different ways. It's different for every person, so it's hard to give advice. But I would say the biggest advice I can give to somebody who was a victim of anything, including sexual assault and rape, is finding your support system, finding those people who will help you heal what needs to be healed.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's my biggest advice is finding your support system.
Yeah. And
it might take a while.
It might take a very long time. I know it definitely took me a while to
finding
find
that support
my people.
system
is
and that's something.
It's more helpful than you think.
Oh yeah, I think the best thing is, even if it takes a while to find that support system, is using that mentality of using the motivation to find that support system to keep you going.
Exactly.
Instead of looking back at all those things, it's looking for positives. It's, okay, maybe these people didn't react and they were nasty about it, or they were rude or shunned me away, or basically ostracized me because of what happened. These are this is my support, and it's hard to keep going without support, but then it's like using the motivation to find your support system to keep you going, and even healing. And a lot of your healing, it needs to be done on your own. Yeah. And I will say that you can have thousands and thousands and millions of people supporting you, but a lot of time to heal, yes.
It needs to kind of come from you.
A lot of yourself. The healing needs to happen from you and internally, and it's healing for yourself. And it's, having those people to support you. They can kind of jumpstart it and push it and give you that start off, but to fully heal, or to get as close to fully healed as possible, a lot of that needs to be done with you yourself. Exactly. And but that's all I have to say left on this topic, or else we're going to be going for another 4 hours. Yeah. And it'll take an entire class period. Yeah. We should start it. We should. That would be an awesome, the therapy podcast. Yay, can we make that? We should. Let's do this. Every time I'm up, we gotta post a new episode on Spotify. Yeah, real.